Hello and welcome to So GPS. My name is Eva and today I'm coming to you from Lviv, a beautiful city in Ukraine, and I came here to express my support and gratitude to the people for fighting for our freedom. So I have a topic that I wanted to discuss, and before I do that, I wanted to welcome you to my channel. First and foremost, if you're new, please do subscribe. If you find this information helpful, do share it with the people who might need it. On this channel, we are dealing a lot with the topic of toxic relationships and recovery from those relationships. And this is precisely what we're going to be talking about today. Is specifically, I've been asked the question of how to forgive oneself, how to forgive yourself for having been maybe stuck in a cycle of these kinds of relationships, or maybe you've been in one, but you feel like it's been way too long, you can't get out, or you have gotten out, and now you're grieving the fact that it's been so long, it's taking so much of your time. So this is a video for you if this is something that you're dealing with. And also I just want to mention that at the end of this video, I am going to tell you a little bit about a retreat that I'm putting together with a team of fantastic women, and it's going to be taking place in Sicily, Italy at the end of September. We're still working on the finalized plan and the actual dates. We're very, very close to getting those finalized. I will also put a link to a video I made specifically about the retreat and what it is that we will be doing, what kind of practices we will be engaging in, what kind of topics we will be discussing, and activities we will be doing. So I will link that video to this video if you're interested. So now let's get into the topic. I do have some notes, so if you'll see me glancing down, it's because I don't want to miss anything that I prepared for you for this video. So let's jump in. First of all, about forgiveness, how to forgive, where to begin. I just want to say, first and foremost, give you a bit of a free rein. You don't have to forgive, right? It's not necessary in this process. This process is divided into different stages, and they will all be different for everyone, and they will take a different amount of time. It usually begins with a bit of a shock, right? When you first realize that the person you've been with is extremely abusive, and you've been basically manipulated into staying and tricked in many ways, emotionally, put into a position where it's very difficult to get out. And if you have just recently exited a relationship like this and you're doing a bit of a post-mortem, and if you have very strong internal convictions such as that, in order to move in, I need to forgive. In order to clean myself, clear myself, prepare myself for the next stage, I need to forgive. If you find yourself telling yourself that and kind of arm-wringing yourself, then I would love you to please stop, because there is no one prescription, there's no one recipe for anyone. And forgiveness is something, at least in my own experience, that comes on its own. It's kind of like a fruit ripening, and a time will come when it will just happen naturally for you. But there's a certain thought process that takes place before you reach that place, and this is exactly what I want to talk about in this video, is to kind of highlight the process, highlight how it occurs, how it happens, so that you can kind of assess where you're at and maybe help yourself move forward if you're stuck at any of the junctures. But first of all, I just want to say that forgiveness is not necessary for you to continue healing, and its time will come when it's right. So what I want you to also remember is that abuse is not something that we agree to consciously. It's something rather that is conditioned over time, gradually, right? And it never starts as abuse, or maybe in some very rare cases. I can't think of examples right now, but if you happen to have experienced something like that, where from the start it was intense and there were signs of abuse, do let us know in a comment. We want to know. I want to know. But the classical progression and beginning of an abusive relationship is usually exactly the opposite of where it ends up, right? It starts with a fairy tale. It starts amazing. But there is an intensity that often, not always, that often accompanies it. And the intensity tends to lead to visions of a fantasy that can be incited by the toxic person, or it could be something that you're just ripe for. You know, a lot of us, and I definitely include myself in this category, what we have experienced is that growing up, again, this is largely about myself. Growing up, I've seen a lot of abuse in relationships. This abuse has become normalized in my mind. But at the same time, while I observed all these couples fighting with each other, cheating on each other, arguing all the time, I yearned for something else. I yearned for a beautiful relationship. So what did I turn to? Because I did not really have models like that in my surroundings, is I turned to movies. I turned to the fantastic world of books, romance that I would invent in my head. I would do this all the time. In fact, since I was very young, I knew that I wanted to write books and write stories, and I'm doing that. That's something that I do in addition to coaching. Is I'm working on screenplays, I'm working on movies, I'm working on novels, short stories, and so on. And it's about sort of, you know, in the beginning, it was all about idealizing the human experience, especially when it comes to relationships, because I didn't see it in my life, but I knew that I wanted to create it. Now my writing is different. Now it's much more realistic. Now that I've learned so much about the human condition, and that I've learned about how things unfortunately sometimes happen in relationships. And the other unfortunate thing is that it's a lot. You know, the statistics say, according to Esther Perel, the relationship psychologist, she had said that it's only about 15 to 20% of couples that enter something called pinnacle relationship or creative relationship, that is considered one that is growing, or two people are constantly supporting and nurturing towards one another and do not move away from each other despite conflict. They learn to resolve conflict in a constructive, creative way, and they learn the art of repair. So it's not a lot. My hope with these videos is that to grow that percentage is for us to end relationships that are abusive and nurture relationships and people who are also nurturing and good for us, so that we can withstand the storms and create long-term, sustainable, beautiful relationships. But back to the topic. So what happened to me was that I would imagine the perfect ideal relationship, and narcissists are so good at this, at triggering this, at nurturing these fantasies, nurturing these visions. And what would happen is, you know, I would meet these men who would seem to be exactly on the same page as me. And in many cases, they really were. They really wanted this fairy tale relationship, but for a different reason than I did. And we were both coming from an immature place, and it takes a while to get to a point of readiness where we can realize that life is not black and white and either or, only bad or only great. And when it gets really dangerous is when we project the best on the worst. But that it's shades of gray, and we need to learn to navigate through all these difficult situations. But again, I just want to emphasize, and the reason why I told this story, this little anecdote maybe, is to make you realize that abuse doesn't happen quickly. It's not like we choose these people consciously and we go like, yeah, oh my God, this person is going to hurt me. I can feel it now and I can't wait to experience that. No, it's not like that. It starts with a fantasy that also grows within us and makes us very vulnerable to want to stay with this person, and makes us not want to see the truth and want to cling to the fantasy. So now, rather than beating yourself up, because we need to remember, we're forgiving ourselves. What I needed to realize is that, where did this come from? In my case, it came from that, from seeing abuse all around me and longing for something else, and turning to Hollywood, of all places, for a vision. Yeah, not realizing that this was my vulnerability. But I was a child. Then I was a teenager. I still didn't know. You know, life took a while to teach me, or I took a while to realize the teachings before I was able to balance my worldview and see where my vulnerabilities were. But during this time, you know, I was ripe for abuse, because I allowed these people to break my boundaries, and they do that to see how much they can get away with. You know, they trigger ones in order to see at which point you get anxious and check whether you're going to give in or whether you're going to stand up. And it took me so long before I was able to say, okay, even though my whole nervous system is lighting up like a Christmas tree and I want to experience this feels so good, this feels so right, even though my mind says like, according to the situation, the sober assessment is that this is a disaster waiting to happen. And it took me a while to garner within myself the self-trust and the power to be able to step away and say no. So if you just did that, or if you're at that place, congratulations for looking at yourself with a sober eye and being able to give yourself the support and the time and the space to make that shift. Because relationships are not supposed to be a testing ground for how much somebody can get away with bad behavior. Of course, relationships are art of compromise, 100% agree, but there are certain lines that just should not be crossed. There needs to be a foundation of mutual respect and, most importantly, self-respect. So this, and this is where I'm getting, is determined. These kinds of outcomes, meaning getting into a relationship that's abusive, is conditioned. It's not some magical law of attraction. I'm sure there are metaphysical elements here that play a role as well. This is just not something I am super well versed in. I've been in that for quite a while. I have been in spiritual circles, especially when I lived in California for a long time. My environment was teeming with people who were all talking about how our thoughts determine what happens on the outside. And I do think that there is a degree of truth to that. But ultimately, abuse is not like we're trying to attract somebody to come in and teach us these lessons that are so painful. I just really don't think that that's the case. I am much more inclined to thinking and sharing here and teaching and discovering with the people that I work with during my client sessions that this is more the result of not having the tools to self-protect, not having the tools to recognize abuse early on, not having the tools to communicate our needs. Just that in itself took me a while to learn, and it's crucial, to be able to communicate your needs. And before you're even able to communicate your needs, you need to know what they are. And before you know what they are, you need to feel like you deserve, like you're worthy of having needs and expressing needs, and even having a healthy degree of expectation from a partner who's supposed to stay with you for many years, maybe even forever, till death do us apart. That there needs to be certain things that are there, that are present, that are foundational. Otherwise, you're signing up for a future that's rife with disappointment, unhappiness, and abuse. So don't feel bad about having experienced what you have. You did it, you learned. And if you're in one of those relationships, there's no better time to learn how to set boundaries than now. So congratulate yourself and be proud. Don't worry whether you've forgiven yourself or not. That will come. But remember this, and this is something I remember I discovered in therapy. And when this happened, I felt so much weight melt off my shoulders. And my gut and my whole body just was such a relief, was that I finally realized, and I was the one who spoke the words, not my therapist. I came to it. I think he may have guided me there on purpose, but I don't know. I'll never know. But it was the realization that every single time I was in a place in my life to make a decision, I made the best decision that I possibly could. Now, if my conditioning was to put the other in front of myself, I made a decision that was detrimental to myself, but it was still the best decision that I could have made. If I was in emotional agony, feeling the pain of loneliness and really deep desire to connect, because if I didn't, I would feel like I'm dying, and I said yes to someone who was not right for me at the time, I still made the best decision for myself. Over time, with therapy, with coaching, with working with other people, reading a ton about the topic, looking around, practicing mindfulness, I learned to make different decisions. Sometimes they still cause pain because the decision ends up being, okay, no thank you, but I am putting myself and my authenticity ahead of a connection that could be detrimental to my health and could end up wasting a lot of mine and their time. And it runs counter to my values. So working on your values is also something important. I think it's an important element of what it is that we do. And in many cases, when I work with my fabulous clients, and my clientele really is like the best people in the world, I couldn't have asked for better work. I love working with my clients because everyone is just so beautiful and so loving and so good. You know, we're all a little bit confused. We're all looking for clarity, but in general, these people are wonderful. And what we do is, rather than create new values, we just discover what it is that your values are. They're probably already in a really good place. You just need to shine your light on them, bring them out from the subconscious into the conscious, and use them while making decisions, while evaluating situations, so that the decision, again, even though it might end up leading to a few months of loneliness, or something that you don't intend, like ending up working on something that doesn't give you that much pleasure, where you could have done something else. If your value is growth, if you don't mind a little bit of grit, if you don't mind a little bit of pain, a little bit of sadness, sit with it, feel it, get to know yourself, get to know what you're made of. And then when you're ready, you'll emerge, and you will be coming from a much stronger place. And it doesn't need to be a place where you're afraid to connect. I think that healthy connections happen gradually. It doesn't have to happen right away. If somebody is expecting you to move forward very quickly and you want to slow down, slow down. That's part of what you're learning. That's part of your growth. Learn to take things at your own pace and don't feel bad about it. Make your life varied. Have different things that you engage in. Nurture your interests. Pour yourself into the work that you love. Create something new, something maybe you haven't yet learned, you haven't yet thought about. Just open up to that, and tread lightly with people. I think it's good to have a little bit of a be careful attitude, rather than pouring yourself enthusiastically into every single new relationship that you encounter. This used to be me, and I will be honest, I sometimes miss that girl. She was so joyful. She took life in stride, with big gulps of enthusiasm, and there's always so much happening around her, and I do miss her sometimes. But I see her come alive when I'm in a safe environment, when I'm in the right people. So know that she or he is still there, and it's just a matter of time when the right environment occurs, when the right things are in place, when she can come back to life, now also in the company of wisdom and experience. So how to take this process of self-forgiveness? First, I would like you to be gentle with yourself and learn to recognize and set aside self-blame. It will not be possible to uproot it and throw it out and burn it. I wish it was. But in general, self-blame is very deeply conditioned into us. You've been likely manipulated with guilt since you were little, so that if someone didn't like your behavior, they were either pouting or giving you silent treatment, or just being uncomfortable, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere. And so you rushed to remedy it, and then things were better and you felt a relief. You've probably done it 1,000 times. I sure have, if not more. So when we have this conditioning, it's really easy to ask yourself the question after a relationship doesn't work out, or if you're in an abusive relationship. Number one, what did I do that things went wrong? It gives us an illusion of control that we can fix it, but we're not taking into account the other person. And the second thing is, what can I do to change it? Exactly. What did I do that it went wrong? What can I do to change it? It's a really good attitude in general to have in life when it comes to taking responsibility for things. But in toxic relationships, it can really do us in. So notice it, set it aside, and be really, really gentle with yourself. Okay? Be compassionate. Turn your empathy inwards. Forgiveness will come in time. Daily affirmations may be helpful. I wrote a few here. I'll read them to you. Number 1 is, I deserve to be loved. I am worthy of respect and kindness. I'm learning new things every day. It wasn't my fault that I didn't know then what I do now, right? How can we blame ourselves for that? I'm becoming wiser every day. You are. And I love and accept myself exactly as I am. With all the experiences, with all the flaws, with all the mistakes we've made, they have all helped us become who we are right now. So by being gentle and relaxing inside, these lessons can really become a part of us rather than being really uptight and fighting with reality. Let's accept it, accept where we are, and stand proud for all the times where we have drawn our boundaries and maintain them. Remember, you did the best you possibly could have at the time. Every decision was your best decision. Sometimes we make decisions without having the complete picture. When we are emotionally bound, we can't see the full picture of what is happening. We can't reason. Our wounds are bleeding. During such times, we must attend to our wounds. They become the priority. If you are currently in such a relationship, in an abusive relationship, you recognize it as such. It might be helpful to get some distance from this person and from this relationship. What I mean is like physical distance. Go to another room, go to a park, better yet, go visit a friend, better yet, spend a couple of nights outside your home. Be either with a friend, or if you can be alone in nature, do that. That will give you tremendous perspective. If you can go for longer, do it. If you can take a vacation, do it. If you can visit a friend overseas, do it. The perspective is so clarifying when we are away. If you are already on your own but are pining for this person and that's clouding your vision, no, it's normal. This is something we all go through. Our nervous system needs time to adjust to the fact that this person isn't present anymore. It also needs to adjust to the truth that this person wasn't right for you. So it's kind of like the body's looking for a dose to get high again. It's waiting for that upswing again. And because it's not coming, it's freaking out. It's okay, let it freak out. Write down the reasons why you left and read them daily. Again, we need to use the reason, the newer part of our brain, the frontal cortex, to communicate it to the emotional brain, the middle brain. They have developed and evolved separately. So that's why we're so often torn between mind and emotion. They operate very differently. It needs to be a time in order for a bridge to be established between the two. It can be a struggle. It can take time. Talking to someone might be helpful. If you'd like to talk, I'm available. And if you are criticizing yourself right now that it took you so long, it took years, it took me even 9 years, okay? It took a while, it takes a while. Then stop, okay? It will not help you. It will make things worse. It will weaken you mentally and emotionally and physically. It will probably weaken your immune system, and it will make your grieving process longer. Just stop adding to the self-flagellation. Try to get into as much of a neutral state as possible and let things happen from there. Look, it's really hard to leave an abusive relationship. Look for the places where you're blaming yourself and expose them. Spread the responsibility fairly. Use your mind, use your frontal cortex to assess the situation and look at it from as much of a logical point of view as you can. Feel the relief that comes from that and let that translate into your emotional body. And finally, remember, you did absolutely the best you could, and be proud of the smallest steps you take and you've taken, because I'm sure this is not the first one. Watching this video should be also helpful. So this is it for the video. I hope it was helpful. Do let me know in your comments. And if you need help, you can go to my website, mysoulgps.org. My contact information is below this video, and book a session with me, a one-on-one session. I would be more than glad to help you through this process. This is something I've helped over 3,000 people with now, and I still delight in doing that and helping to see people transform. So, about the retreat, again, it is going to be at the end of September in Sicily. I'd love for you to be there. If you're a woman, I forgot to add, this is for women only. In the future, we might do mixed retreats, but for now we just want to do women only. It's going to be our first one of this sort, first one of this size and of this length. It will be about a week, more probably like 6 days or 6 nights, and we will be engaging in doing a lot of stuff, also hands-on, such as ceramics. We will be eating delicious Italian meals. We will be also learning how to cook, which I think will be a lot of fun, and we will be engaging in somatic movement sessions as well, that will help to rewire the nervous system and purge the trauma, so we can finally feel the relief and the pleasure that comes as a result of being connected to ourselves. And of course, you will be spending time with me. We will be having daily circles, except for one day when we will be going to the winery and making ceramics. At that day will be mostly spent outdoors and doing hands-on crafts. And during that time, we will not have any circles, but I will be available to all of you should you need my help, should you have any questions. And other than that, we will be having a progression of time together, doing one-on-one coaching in the circle and doing some lectures, and then me answering your questions, and us co-creating a beautiful space of healing together. So I hope you'll join us. The information about who to contact to get on our list is down below this video. There's also going to be a link to the video that specifically and more in depth talks about the retreat. And for now, I thank you very much for your attention. Again, greetings from Ukraine, and I'm sending you all my best. Bye-bye.